In that moment, Zaris made a choice that would echo through the remnants of this battle and beyond. She had to buy Eli the time he needed, even if it meant facing the worst Kellen had to offer. Drawing in a deep breath, she steadied herself, her heart racing as she faced her former ally. "I won't let you win, not today." Kellen charged at her with renewed fervor, and Zaris met him head-on, the two colliding like titans in the storm of battle. Each strike felt like a dance of life and death, the stakes of their conflict ever present. They weaved around each other, the energy between them electrifying. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted nearby, followed by the unmistakable sound of a force field collapsing. Zaris's heart soared. Eli had to be close. She redoubled her efforts against Kellen, pushing him back with a flurry of calculated blows. "I won't let you take away our future," she shouted, determination lending strength to her voice. "Future." Kellen laughed bitterly, recovering from a blow. "You're delusional. You have no future. This is the end for you and your little rebellion." In that moment of distraction, Zaris saw her opening. She feinted to the left, then pivoted, launching a kick that sent Kellen crashing into a nearby control panel. Sparks flew, and the machinery sputtered ominously. She took the opportunity to capitalize on his moment of weakness. "Eli, now," she yelled, praying her words reached him over the cacophony of battle. Just as Kellen scrambled to recover, the control panel began to crackle and smoke, alarms blaring as Ellie's efforts bore fruit. With one final push, Zaris charged forward, feeling the weight of every choice she had made, every sacrifice her comrades had endured. Kellen, however, was not done yet. He regained his footing and lunged, desperate to regain control of the situation. But Zaris was faster, redirecting her energy and unleashing a final blow. It landed squarely on Kellen's chest, knocking him to the ground. Panting heavily, Zaris stood over him, her heart racing as she faced the man she once considered a friend. "This is for everyone you've hurt," she declared, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling around them. With Kellen incapacitated, Zaris turned her gaze toward the control unit. The Federation soldiers were advancing, but Eli was there, working furiously to disable the system. The flickering lights reflected the intensity of the battle, and she could see the fear and determination etched on his face. "Eli, we need to go," she shouted, urgency filling her voice as she dashed toward him, ready to protect him with every ounce of her being. As she reached Eli, she felt the weight of their choices pressing down on her. They had sacrificed so much, but they had also ignited a fire within the hearts of their allies. The rebellion was not just a fight, it was a movement, a hope for a future they could believe in. "I'm almost there," Eli shouted, his fingers flying over the controls. "Just a few more seconds." Zaris turned to face the oncoming soldiers, her heart pounding with adrenaline. "I'll hold them off. You need to finish this." "No, we do this together," Eli countered, his eyes fierce with determination. "We can't give up now." Zaris could see the Federation forces closing in, their intent clear. "If we don't stop them now, we'll lose everything we've fought for." With a final glance at each other, they shared a moment of unspoken understanding. It was a choice forged in the fire of their battles, a bond that transcended fear. They were in this together, come what may. Just as the soldiers charged, the control unit erupted with a blinding light, and the entire facility shook. "Zaris, get down," Eli shouted, and they both dove to the side as the control unit exploded, sending shockwaves through the air. The blast sent debris flying, forcing the Federation soldiers to scatter as chaos erupted. Zaris and Eli hit the ground, shielded by a heavy piece of machinery. The force of the explosion resonated through them, a visceral reminder of the cost of their choices. When the dust settled, Zaris blinked against the haze, her heart pounding. The control unit lay in ruins, the Federation's control severed. The cries of their comrades echoed through the air, a mix of triumph and fear as the tide of battle shifted. "We did it," Eli exclaimed, his voice filled with disbelief and relief. We actually did it. The ashen battlefield. The air was thick with the acrid smell of smoke and burnt metal, the remnants of the Velen cruiser slowly dissolving into the desolate landscape. In the distance, the horizon glowed an eerie red, casting long shadows across the battlefield where Velen warriors had fought bravely against the relentless onslaught of human soldiers. Zaris, a young Velen, crouched behind the twisted remains of a downed ship, her breath quickening with each passing moment. Her heart raced, and she could hear it pounding in her ears, drowning out the distant explosions and the cries of the fallen. Every nerve in her body screamed for her to run, to hide, but the instinct to survive fought against the paralyzing fear that gripped her. Focus, she whispered to herself, forcing her trembling hands to steady. She had witnessed too many horrors already. The Velen people were losing their battle against the invading forces of Earth, their once thriving civilization reduced to rubble. In the thick of the chaos, she could still hear the echoes of her fallen comrades, their laughter, their hopes, their dreams, now silenced forever. The faces of those she had lost haunted her as she navigated through the debris, her body battered and weary from the fight. She pressed a hand to her side, wincing as fresh pain shot through her, a reminder of the wound she had sustained in the battle. A low rumble echoed in the distance, and her heart skipped a beat. Zaris peered cautiously around the wreckage, her sharp eyes scanning the smoky expanse for any sign of movement. The human soldiers were ruthless, known for their efficiency and brutality. She had seen them shoot down her fellow Velens without a second thought, and the memories ignited a fire of rage within her. They deserved to be stopped, but now she was the prey. As she crouched low, she spotted a group of soldiers advancing, their armor glinting ominously in the fading light. Zaris's heart raced as they drew closer, their voices harsh and taunting. Where are you hiding, Velen scum? We know you're out there. The sound of their laughter sent a chill down her spine. Instinctively, Zaris turned to run, her muscles screaming in protest. She darted into the ruins of what was once a vibrant Velen city, her feet pounding against the cracked earth. She could feel the eyes of the soldiers on her, their presence like a predator stalking its prey. The cries of her people echoed in her ears, a haunting reminder of her duty to fight for them. She stumbled into an alleyway, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Shadows clung to her, wrapping around her like a cloak, but she knew they wouldn't last long. The humans were relentless, their technology far superior to anything her people possessed. Zaris's eyes darted toward a crumbling building, its structure sagging under the weight of destruction. It was an old human facility, one that had been abandoned long before the war had escalated. If she could just reach it, she might find a place to hide. The soldiers were closing in. She could hear them getting closer, their boots crunching over debris. She made a desperate dash for the building, pushing her aching body to its limits. The adrenaline coursing through her veins dulled the pain for now, and she slipped through a broken door just as the soldiers rounded the corner. Inside, darkness enveloped her, thick and suffocating, but she welcomed it. Zaris pressed her back against the wall, heart racing, listening to the muffled voices of the soldiers outside. They were searching the area, their frustration palpable. She can't have gone far. Split up and search every inch, one barked. The order sent a jolt of fear through her. They would find her. It was only a matter of time. As she crouched in the shadows, Zaris's mind raced. What would happen if they caught her? She had seen firsthand what they did to captured Velens: torture, humiliation, death. They wouldn't show her mercy. Her breathing quickened again, panic rising within her, but she forced herself to remain calm. She couldn't afford to give in to fear now. The sound of footsteps grew closer, and she pressed herself tighter against the wall, barely daring to breathe. Suddenly, a figure stepped into the dim light. Zaris's heart leaped into her throat, fear constricting around her like a vice. The soldier was tall and broad-shouldered, his silhouette stark against the flickering shadows of the ruined building. He wore the Earth Federation's combat armor, its insignia glinting in the darkness. Captain Eli Rogers, she recognized, a name spoken in fearful whispers among her people. In that instant, she was frozen, her mind racing with conflicting thoughts. He was her enemy, yet there was something about his presence that felt different from the others. She could sense a strange weight in the air, a tension that didn't quite match the fury she expected. Eli scanned the area, his eyes sharp and calculating. Zaris could see the rifle slung over his shoulder, the cold metal glinting ominously in the darkness. But instead of raising it, he seemed hesitant, searching for something more than just his prey. "Velen," he called out, his voice low but steady. "I know you're in here. There's no escape. You're wounded, and I have no intention of hurting you. Just come out, and we can talk." Zaris's instincts screamed at her to fight, to lash out with her blades and defend her honor. But the unexpected softness in his tone made her hesitate. "Talk," she muttered under her breath, disbelief mingling with the urgency of the moment. "What does a human know of talking?" "Please," Eli continued, frustration creeping into his voice. "I don't want to kill you. I've seen too much death already. Let's end this senseless violence." In that moment, Zaris felt a flicker of something she couldn't name. A chance? Hope? It was ludicrous to even entertain the thought. But the intensity in his gaze, the genuine desperation she saw there, compelled her to take a risk she never thought she would. With a deep breath, she stepped out from the shadows, her hands raised cautiously. "I won't fight you," she said, her voice steady despite the fear thrumming beneath her skin. "But don't think for a second that I trust you." Eli lowered his weapon slowly, his expression shifting from caution to surprise. "That's all I'm asking for. Just a moment to talk." He stepped closer, eyes scanning her wounds, the concern evident in his gaze. "You need medical attention. Let me help you." Zaris shook her head, still grappling with the implausibility of this encounter. "And why should I let you? You're one of them, a soldier trained to kill my kind." "I don't want to kill you," Eli said, his voice rising slightly in frustration. "I'm tired of the killing, the senseless slaughter on both sides. It has to stop." Zaris felt a twinge of disbelief, but also a flicker of curiosity. She had spent so long fighting against humans, against their cruelty, yet here stood one who spoke of compassion. She searched his eyes, looking for any hint of deception, but found only sincerity. "Why should I believe you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What's in it for you?" "Maybe I'm just tired of being a pawn in this war," Eli replied, his shoulders sagging slightly. "Maybe I see you as a person, not a target. Your kind." "The enemy," she interrupted, her voice sharp. "You don't get to play the hero after what your people have done." "Then let me help you," Eli said, determination hardening his expression. "You don't have to be a part of this anymore. We can find a way to change things." The intensity of his gaze held her captive, and for a fleeting moment, Zaris considered the possibility. Could there be a chance for peace, even amidst the ashes of their conflict? Before she could respond, the ominous whir of drones interrupted the moment, their mechanical sounds filling the air with a chilling certainty. Both of them froze, the tension shifting as the reality of their situation crashed down upon them. "Drones," Zaris hissed, her instincts kicking in again. "They've tracked me here." Ellie's eyes widened, and he turned to the door, glancing back at her. "We need to move, now. If they find us together, they won't show either of us mercy." Zaris hesitated for a moment, torn between her ingrained fear and the flicker of hope Eli represented. She didn't know if she could trust him, but instinct urged her to act. "Lead the way," she said finally, determination burning in her chest. "But know this, I'll fight if I have to." Eli nodded, a grim smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "I wouldn't expect anything less." Together, they dashed through the shadows, the weight of their world pressing down on them as they fled into the unknown, two enemies thrust together by fate, their lives forever intertwined by the ashes of war. The Pact of Shadows. The dimly lit corridors of the crumbling building echoed with their hurried footsteps as Zaris and Eli navigated through the twisted remains of humanity's past. The faint glow of emergency lights flickered intermittently, casting unsettling shadows that danced across the walls, mirroring the tension crackling between them. Outside, the chaos of war continued, but within this shelter, a different battle was brewing, one of trust and survival. As they moved deeper into the structure, Zaris felt a whirlwind of emotions course through her. She had entered this space as a soldier, a fierce defender of her people, but now she was here alongside a human, a soldier who had fought against her kind. Each step echoed with uncertainty, and every creak of the old floorboards reminded her of the danger that lingered just beyond the walls. She could almost hear the soft whir of the drones overhead, patrolling the ruins with a relentless hunger for Velen blood. Eli glanced at her, his expression a mixture of concern and determination. "We should find a secure location to regroup. They'll be searching for you, and we need to strategize." His voice was low but firm, the weight of leadership settling upon him in that moment. Zaris nodded, her instincts urging her to remain vigilant. "What do you suggest?" She forced herself to focus, to push aside the nagging doubts that had begun to creep into her mind. "There's a maintenance room up ahead," Eli replied, glancing down a narrow hallway filled with rusted machinery and debris. "It might provide some cover and give us a chance to catch our breath." Zaris followed him, her heart pounding in her chest. The thought of being caught sent a chill down her spine, but she pushed the fear aside. What would her people think of her now? Running with a human? But the war had changed everything. The lines between enemy and ally were blurring, and she felt it in her bones, a shift that could either save them or doom them both. As they reached the maintenance room, Eli kicked the door open, the sound echoing ominously in the stillness. Inside, the air was stale and thick with dust, remnants of the past cluttering the space. Tools and machinery lay scattered about, forgotten relics of a bygone era. Eli quickly stepped inside, scanning the room for threats before motioning for Zaris to follow. She stepped in cautiously, her senses heightened. "What now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's barricade the door," he suggested, already moving to a heavy workbench against the far wall. Together, they pushed it against the door, the creaking of wood and metal echoing in the confined space. "This should hold them off for a while," he said, a hint of reassurance in his tone. Zaris watched him work, her mind racing. Why had he saved her? What did he gain from this act of defiance? She had spent her entire life fighting against humans, but here he was, offering her a lifeline. A part of her wanted to dismiss him as another soldier, another enemy. But another part, one that had been silenced for too long, yearned for understanding. "Why?" she finally asked, her voice steady as she turned to face him. "Why did you help me?" Eli paused, the weight of her question hanging in the air. He met her gaze, his expression earnest. "I'm tired of this war," he admitted, his voice low. "I've seen too much death and destruction. You're not just a Velen, you're a person, and I can't just stand by and let you die." Zaris's heart raced at his words, the vulnerability in his voice striking a chord within her. "And what do you expect to gain from this? Redemption? A change of heart?" "Maybe," Eli replied, a flicker of pain crossing his face. "But more than that, I want to help end this senseless violence. I don't want to kill anymore, and I don't want to be a part of the cycle of hatred that's consuming both our peoples. If I can help one person." "A single life doesn't matter in the grand scheme of war," Zaris interrupted, the bitterness creeping into her voice. "Our people are dying. Your kind sees us as nothing more than targets, obstacles in your path to domination. Why would you care?" Eli stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "Because I see you," he said, his voice firm. "I see the strength in you, the pain, the loss. We're all caught in this cycle, and it's tearing us apart. But if we can find a way to break it, to trust one another." Zaris shook her head, disbelief coursing through her. Trust is a luxury we cannot afford, she said sharply. You say you want to help, but I can't forget what your people have done. The lives lost, the suffering endured. You expect me to just believe. Then let me show you, Eli urged, his eyes intense with sincerity. I can help you find a way to survive, to escape. Together, we can uncover the truth of what's happening. There are factions within the Federation that don't agree with this war, and they need people like us, those willing to fight against it. Zaris felt the weight of his words settle upon her, the flicker of hope mingling with her deep-seated skepticism. Could it really be possible? A part of her was desperate for change, for an end to the violence that had ravaged her home. But could she truly ally herself with a human? Fine, she said finally, the determination in her voice stronger than the doubt. But I will not hesitate to fight you if you betray me. Eli nodded, understanding the stakes. I wouldn't expect anything less. But together, we can forge a new path. We just need to stay ahead of the drones and the soldiers hunting you down. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from outside, the sound of footsteps pounding against the pavement. Zaris's heart raced, adrenaline surging through her veins. They're here. Eli moved to the window, peering outside. We have to act fast. I saw a service exit at the back of the building. It might be our only chance. Lead the way, Zaris said, her voice steady despite the fear clenching her heart. They needed to move quickly. They slipped out of the maintenance room, their footsteps silent against the cracked tiles. Eli led her through a series of dimly lit passages, his instincts guiding them as they weaved through the labyrinth of the building. Each corner they turned brought them closer to freedom, but also deeper into uncertainty. As they approached the exit, the sounds of the soldiers grew louder, their voices filled with anger and frustration. Split up. She can't have gone far. Check the back. Zaris felt a surge of panic at their words, the realization of their dwindling time pressing heavily on her shoulders. They're closing in. Just a little further, Eli urged, his determination unwavering. They reached the service exit, a small door hidden behind a stack of crates. Eli pushed it open, the creaking hinges sounding like a gunshot in the stillness. After you, he said, urgency in his voice. Zaris stepped through the door, her heart racing. Outside, the chaos of war unfolded before her eyes. The sky was a tumultuous canvas of smoke and fire, the remnants of the battle still burning in the distance. But amidst the destruction, there was an unexpected beauty, the resilience of life fighting against the odds. Eli followed her, glancing around for any sign of danger. We need to keep moving, he urged. The drones will be here any minute. As they sprinted away from the building, Zaris's mind raced. What had she just committed to? The risk felt monumental, but the thought of returning to the battlefield alone was far worse. Where do we go from here? She asked, her breath coming in quick gasps. There's an underground safe house not far from here, Eli replied, his focus unwavering. It's a place where those who oppose the war can gather. We'll be safe there for a while. Zaris felt a flicker of hope igniting within her, the possibility of sanctuary just within reach. And then what? She pressed, wanting clarity amidst the chaos. Then we regroup, plan our next move, and find a way to fight back, Eli said, determination etched into every word. Together. They darted through the debris-strewn streets, navigating the remnants of a once thriving city. The sight of destruction felt surreal. It was a battlefield she had known her entire life, yet it now felt different, tainted by the bond she was beginning to forge with this human. Suddenly, a loud buzzing filled the air, and a drone descended from the clouds, its camera whirling as it scanned the area. Run! Eli shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her along. They ducked into an alleyway, the narrow passage offering a moment of concealment. The drone hovered just above, its mechanical eyes searching for any signs of movement. The tension was palpable, and Zaris held her breath, the weight of their fate hanging in the balance. Stay low, Eli whispered, his voice barely audible over the thrumming of the drone's engine. As they crouched together in the shadows, Zaris couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The world outside was a battleground, but here, in the heart of the storm, she felt an unexpected connection with Ele, a connection that could either save them or shatter their fragile alliance. The drone eventually moved on, its mechanical whir fading into the distance. Zaris released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. "We need to go now," she urged, her instincts pushing her forward. They slipped out of the alley and continued their sprint towards the safe house. With every step, Zaris felt the ground shifting beneath her, the walls of her world crumbling as she stepped into unknown territory. She was a soldier on a mission, but she was also a woman facing the shadows of her past, shadows that had long dictated her reality. As they reached the safe house, a dilapidated building hidden between towering ruins, Eli turned to her, his expression resolute. "This is it," he said, pushing the door open to reveal a dimly lit interior. Inside, a small group of wary faces turned to them, eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Zaris felt the weight of their gazes upon her, the judgment and skepticism mingling with hope. Eli stepped forward, raising his hands. "We found her. This is Zaris, a Velen soldier. We need to work together if we're going to survive." The room fell silent, the tension palpable as the group processed the revelation. Zaris stood tall, her heart racing but her resolve unyielding. "Together," she echoed, her voice steady. "We fight not as Velens and humans, but as survivors against a common enemy." As she spoke, she felt the shadows of her past begin to lift, the weight of her choices shifting from a burden to a beacon of hope. The war may have drawn lines in the sand, but in this moment, those lines were beginning to blur, creating a space for unity and understanding in the most unlikely of places. This extended part captures the essence of their evolving relationship amid the chaos of war, setting the stage for future developments in their journey. If you'd like to make any changes or further expand on specific elements, just let me know. The Alliance of Shadows. The atmosphere inside the safe house was charged with tension as Zaris surveyed the group before her. The small gathering of resistance fighters, humans and Velens alike, exuded a mix of wariness and hope, their faces drawn and wary from the ravages of conflict. In this room, the lines that had once divided them felt less rigid, as if the walls were slowly crumbling away under the weight of shared purpose. Eli stepped forward, the flickering candlelight illuminating his determined features. "Everyone, this is Zaris. She's one of the best soldiers from the Velen ranks. If we're going to fight back against the Federation's oppressive regime, we need to listen to her." His voice held a conviction that resonated with the room, but Zaris felt the palpable skepticism hanging in the air. One of the resistance members, a grizzled man with scars etched into his skin, crossed his arms defiantly. "How can we trust her? She's one of them, a soldier who has been fighting against us." Zaris felt her heart quicken at his words, the accusation laced with years of animosity. "I understand your hesitation," she began, her voice steady despite the weight of judgment. "But I'm not here to fight you. I'm here because I believe we share a common enemy. The war has taken enough from all of us, and it's time to put our differences aside." The room fell silent, the tension crackling like static electricity. Zaris's eyes scanned the faces around her, searching for any signs of understanding. She felt an unfamiliar ache in her chest, a longing for acceptance in a world that had always portrayed her as the enemy. Eli stepped closer to her, his presence a steady anchor in the storm. "Zaris is right," he said, addressing the room. "We're on the brink of something bigger than ourselves. The Federation's grip on our lives is suffocating, and they won't stop until they've annihilated us both. If we don't stand together, we will fall apart." The grizzled man hesitated, his eyes narrowing as he considered Eli's words. "What do you suggest?" he asked, his voice begrudgingly open to the idea of collaboration. Eli took a deep breath, his gaze shifting to Zaris. "We need to gather intelligence. There are reports of a major operation being planned by the Federation. If we can disrupt it, we can show both our people that resistance is possible. Zaris nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. I have contacts within the Velen ranks who may have information. We can leverage that to our advantage. What kind of operation are we talking about? A young woman with fiery red hair asked, her tone skeptical yet curious. An attack on a civilian center, Eli replied, grim determination etching his features. It's meant to sow fear and further solidify the Federation's control over both our peoples. We can't let this happen. The room buzzed with murmurs, the gravity of their situation settling upon them like a heavy cloak. Zaris felt a flicker of hope ignite within her as she watched the group begin to engage with one another, their collective desire for change sparking a sense of unity she had never anticipated. Then it settled, the grizzled man said, his expression softening. But we will need to be careful. Our enemies are watching every move we make. Eli nodded, the plan solidifying in his mind. We'll split into teams. Some of us will gather information while others work on securing safe passages for our people. Zaris, you and I will reach out to your contacts. We need to move quickly. As the group began to strategize, Zaris felt an unexpected surge of empowerment. For so long, she had fought alone, believing that her worth was defined by her strength in battle. But here, among these individuals who had once been enemies, she sensed a growing bond forged through mutual understanding and shared goals. Eli, she said, catching his attention amid the planning chaos. What if my contacts don't trust me? They see me as a traitor, a soldier of the Federation. How can I convince them to help? Eli met her gaze, his eyes filled with determination. You'll show them that you're not just a soldier. You're a survivor, just like they are. Your presence here speaks volumes about your willingness to fight for change. Trust your instincts. Zaris took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. Ellie's faith in her was a powerful motivator, igniting a flicker of resolve within her. Perhaps she could bridge the divide, not just between her people and the humans, but within herself as well. All right, she said, her voice steady. Let's do this. The plan was set into motion, the urgency propelling them into action. They divided into groups, each assigned specific tasks. Zaris and Eli would head to the Velen encampment, while the others began scouting for possible safe routes and gathering intelligence on the Federation's movements. As they stepped outside the safe house, the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the rubble-strewn street. The air felt charged with a mixture of fear and hope, the fragile balance of their new alliance hanging in the balance. Stay low and keep your eyes open, Ili advised, his tone serious as they slipped through the alleys. Zaris nodded, her senses heightened as they navigated the debris of their once vibrant city. Each footstep echoed with a mix of apprehension and determination, the weight of their mission resting heavily on their shoulders. As they approached the Velen encampment, the tension in the air thickened. Zaris felt the familiar tightness in her chest, a blend of anxiety and nostalgia as she neared the place she had once called home. The camp was a haphazard assembly of tents and makeshift structures, a stark reminder of the war's devastation. Just remember, Eli said softly, sensing her unease. You're not here to fight them. You're here to show them that change is possible. Zaris nodded, taking a deep breath as they stepped into the encampment. The moment she entered, a hush fell over the gathered soldiers. Familiar faces turned to her, their expressions a mix of surprise and suspicion. Zaris, one of her former comrades called out, his voice filled with disbelief. What are you doing here? I'm here to help, she replied, her heart pounding as she faced them. We need to talk. The soldiers exchanged glances, the atmosphere heavy with uncertainty. You're one of them now, another voice spoke up, laced with bitterness. A traitor to your kind. No, she said, her voice rising above the whispers. I'm here because I refuse to see any more bloodshed. The Federation is planning an attack that could decimate our people. We need to unite against them, or we'll all be destroyed. Skepticism rippled through the crowd, but Zaris pressed on. Eli is with me. He believes in our cause, and I know that we can find a way to fight back together." The tension in the air shifted as Eli stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "We can't afford to let anger and distrust dictate our actions. The Federation is counting on our division. If we work together, we stand a chance." A silence fell over the crowd, uncertainty giving way to contemplation. Zaris felt the weight of their judgment, but she also sensed a flicker of hope sparking within her former comrades. Finally, the first soldier who had spoken, a tall Velen with fierce eyes, stepped forward. "What do you propose then? How do we unite?" Zaris took a deep breath, the stakes feeling higher than ever. "We gather information on the Federation's movements, disrupt their plans, and show our people that we can fight back. Together." One by one, her comrades began to nod, the spark of unity igniting among them. "All right, we'll hear you out," the soldier said, his expression shifting from skepticism to cautious optimism. As the soldiers began to gather around her, Zaris felt a rush of exhilaration. This was what she had been fighting for, a chance to unite their peoples, to transcend the boundaries that had long divided them. With Eli by her side, she was no longer alone in this fight. The discussions continued, plans forming and strategies developing as they laid the groundwork for their resistance. It was a fragile alliance, built on the ashes of war and fueled by a shared desire for peace. Zaris knew the path ahead would be treacherous, fraught with danger and uncertainty, but in that moment, she felt a flicker of hope blossom in her heart, a glimmer of what could be if they were willing to stand together. As dusk settled over the camp, the sounds of laughter and camaraderie began to fill the air, a stark contrast to the desolation that had surrounded them. Zaris watched as her former comrades slowly began to lower their guard, the walls of mistrust starting to crumble in the face of shared purpose. "Eli," she said, her voice soft as they stepped aside to talk privately. "Thank you for believing in me. I couldn't have done this without you." He turned to her, a warm smile breaking through the tension. "You didn't need me to believe in you. You needed to believe in yourself. You've shown them that you're not just a soldier, you're a beacon of hope." Zaris felt her heart swell with gratitude, a bond forming between them that transcended their past. Together, they would forge a path through the darkness, not just as soldiers, but as individuals willing to embrace the light of unity in a world divided by fear. The call to arms. Dawn broke over the horizon, casting a soft golden light across the encampment. Zaris stood at the edge of the Velen camp, watching as the first rays of sun illuminated the weary faces of her comrades. The night had been restless, filled with whispered strategies and fervent discussions. Now, as the day began, she felt the weight of their collective purpose pressing down on her, a palpable energy thrumming through the air. "Today is the day," Eli said, stepping up beside her, his voice low but steady. He squinted against the sunlight, a look of resolve etched across his features. "Are you ready?" Zaris turned to him, her heart pounding with anticipation. "I've never been more ready," she replied, though inside, a swirl of nerves danced through her stomach. "But I can't help but wonder if we're prepared for what lies ahead." Eli met her gaze, the intensity in his eyes a reassuring anchor. "We've done everything we can to prepare. We'll have the element of surprise on our side. The Federation won't see us coming." As they turned back toward the camp, Zaris felt a flicker of uncertainty. The soldiers around her were gearing up, tying makeshift armor and checking their weapons. Some exchanged glances filled with a mix of hope and trepidation. The alliance between humans and Velens was still fragile, but they were united in their resolve to reclaim their freedom. "Gather round." A familiar voice boomed through the camp. It was the tall Velen soldier, the one who had been skeptical at first, but had since become a key leader in their resistance efforts. "We need to go over the plan one last time." The soldiers quickly assembled in a semicircle, their eyes fixed on the leader. Zaris felt her heart race as she took her place alongside Eli, who stood slightly in front of her, ready to support her. "We're not just fighting for ourselves," the leader began, his voice resonating with authority. We're fighting for our families, our homes, and our future. Today, we make our stand against the Federation." A collective cheer erupted from the crowd, igniting a fire of determination that spread through the ranks. Zaris felt a surge of pride swell within her chest. She was part of something larger than herself, a movement that could alter the course of history. The leader continued, "Our objective is clear. We have intel that the Federation plans to execute a major offensive at the central power grid, a location vital to both our people. If we can disrupt this operation, we not only cripple their capabilities, but also send a message that we will not be subdued." Eli leaned closer to Zaris, whispering, "We'll hit them where it hurts the most. Once they see we're not afraid to fight back, it'll give hope to others." Zaris nodded, her heart racing. And what if they retaliate? What if innocent lives are caught in the crossfire? Eli's expression softened, filled with understanding. "We'll do everything we can to minimize collateral damage. But sometimes, to protect our future, we must take risks. We'll be the shields for our people." As the plan was outlined in further detail, Zaris's mind raced with thoughts of her family and friends still trapped under the Federation's rule. The memories of laughter and love, mixed with the sharp pangs of loss. She had to make this count. They all had to. "Listen up," the leader barked, pulling Zaris back to the moment. "We'll split into 3 teams. Team 1 will create a diversion at the west entrance. Team 2 will flank the eastern perimeter. Team 3... "That's us," Ellie interjected, his voice cutting through the chatter. "We'll head straight for the power grid." Zaris swallowed hard, adrenaline surging through her veins. "And if we encounter resistance?" "Stick to the plan," the leader replied, his gaze serious. "Keep communication open at all times. And remember, we're in this together. Trust each other." As the meeting concluded, Zaris felt a mix of emotions, a concoction of fear, hope, and determination swirling within her. This was it. This was the moment they had prepared for. "All right, everyone, gear up," the leader shouted, rallying the troops. "We move out in 15 minutes." The camp erupted into a flurry of activity as soldiers donned their gear, checking weapons and gathering supplies. Zaris grabbed a few grenades, feeling their weight in her hands, a reminder of the potential destruction they could unleash. But it wasn't just about destruction, it was about liberation. "Are you ready?" Ellie asked, stepping close to her, his voice barely above a whisper amid the chaos. "More than ever," Zaris replied, her heart resolute. "But I can't help but think about everything we're risking." Eli reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We're fighting for a future where our children won't have to endure the same oppression. This is about hope, Zaris." As the countdown to their mission approached, Zaris felt the weight of the world pressing upon her shoulders. She had never been one to shy away from battle, but this was different. This was a fight not just for survival, but for the chance to rewrite their destinies. The group gathered outside the camp, a sea of determination and resolve. Their faces were set, a mix of fear and courage reflected in their eyes. As they prepared to move, Zaris caught sight of the sunrise, painting the sky in vibrant hues of orange and pink, a stark contrast to the darkness they were about to face. "Let's go," the leader shouted, his voice ringing out like a battle cry. The resistance set off, their footsteps echoing in unison as they ventured into the unknown. The world around them felt charged with potential, each moment stretching out before them like an unwritten story, waiting to unfold. As they neared the power grid, the tension in the air thickened, a heavy blanket of anticipation wrapping around them. The sound of distant machinery hummed ominously, a reminder of the Federation's presence lurking just beyond the horizon. "Remember the plan," Ele reminded the group as they approached the designated point. "Stick together, and we'll make it through this." Zaris's heart raced, adrenaline pumping through her veins. She felt a sense of purpose igniting within her as they neared their destination, every step echoing with the collective hope of their alliance. The past had forged them into warriors, but it was their resolve for a better future that would ultimately define them. As they took their positions, the leader motioned for silence, signaling for everyone to remain low. Zaris crouched beside Ely, her breath shallow as she scanned the area, her senses heightened. The power grid loomed before them, a massive structure adorned with steel and wires, pulsing with energy that seemed to mock their efforts. "On my mark," the leader whispered, his eyes narrowing. 3, 2, 1, go. With a swift motion, the leader charged forward, his team following suit as they erupted from their hiding spots. The element of surprise was on their side, the guards barely registering their presence before the onslaught began. Zaris's heart raced as chaos erupted around her. Explosions rocked the ground, and shouts of surprise filled the air. She moved instinctively, adrenaline propelling her forward as she fired her weapon, targeting the nearest guard. "Cover me," Eli shouted, moving to flank a group of soldiers that had begun to regroup. Zaris's world narrowed to the rhythm of gunfire and the roar of battle. She felt every breath, every heartbeat, intensifying the moment as she fought alongside her comrades. The weight of fear began to fade, replaced by a fierce determination to protect the future they all yearned for. As they advanced, Zaris caught glimpses of the other teams moving through the chaos, their coordinated efforts a beautiful dance of rebellion against the Federation. They were not just soldiers, they were a united front, an alliance forged in the fires of adversity. "Zaris, this way," Eli called, beckoning her to follow him toward a group of guards trying to regain control. She dashed after him, her pulse pounding in her ears. Together, they surged through the fray, their movements synchronized as they fought side by side. With every strike, Zaris felt a deep sense of purpose take root within her, a conviction that they could change their world one battle at a time. But as they neared the central control unit of the power grid, Zaris felt a sudden chill wash over her. A figure emerged from the shadows, clad in the dark insignia of the Federation. The air grew thick with tension as recognition struck her like a bolt of lightning. "Zaris," the figure sneered, a wicked smile creeping across his lips. It was Kellan, her former commander, the very man who had sent her to the front lines, all while manipulating the truth of the Velen struggle. "I should have known you'd betray your own kind." In that instant, everything froze. The chaos of battle receded into the background as Zaris faced Kellan, the weight of their shared history heavy in the air between them. "I'm not betraying anyone," Zaris shot back, her voice steady despite the turmoil brewing inside her. "I'm fighting for a future where no one has to suffer under your tyranny." Kellan laughed, a dark, chilling sound that sent shivers down her spine. "You think you can change anything? The Federation will crush you, just as it has crushed everyone before you." With a surge of anger, Zaris lifted her weapon, determination coursing through her veins. Not today. As she prepared to confront him, the reality of their struggle settled around them, a battle not just for survival, but for redemption, hope, and the chance to rewrite their destinies. A choice of sacrifice. The air crackled with tension as Zaris stood face to face with Kellan, the bitter taste of betrayal lingering in the back of her throat. The chaos of battle raged around them, but in that moment, time seemed to stretch, isolating them from the turmoil. Memories flashed through her mind, the training sessions, the missions, the camaraderie they had shared. She had once trusted him, believed in the mission they fought for. Now, that trust felt like a distant echo, drowned out by the reality of his twisted allegiance to the Federation. "You still don't get it, do you?" Kellan sneered, taking a step forward, his confidence radiating like a dark shadow. "The Federation is unbreakable. You think your little rebellion can change anything. You're just pawns in a game you can't even begin to understand." Zaris felt her fists clench around her weapon, her heart pounding in her chest. "You're the pawn, Kellan, blindly following orders while people like you destroy lives. You may have power now, but it's built on oppression." Kellan's expression hardened, his jaw tightening. "You're delusional. I'm offering you a chance to join us. Fight alongside the Federation, and you won't just survive, you'll thrive. You could have everything you ever wanted. Zarus's heart raced, torn between the allure of power and the knowledge of what that power cost. Everything I want is freedom, not tyranny. I'll never stand with you, and I'll never accept your offer. Fool, he spat, rage flickering in his eyes. You think you're making a noble choice? You're nothing but a martyr waiting to be sacrificed. At that moment, the sounds of gunfire and chaos surged back into focus. Zarus could see Eli and the others fighting against the oncoming wave of Federation soldiers, the tide of battle turning dangerously close to their location. The urgency of their situation gripped her, pulling her back to the present. Zarus, Eli shouted, dodging a volley of gunfire as he maneuvered toward her, his expression a mix of concern and determination. What are you doing? We need to move. Kellen's eyes flickered toward Eli, a calculating glint flashing across his face. Ah, your little boyfriend, how quaint. You know he's putting himself in danger for a lost cause, don't you? Shut up. Zarus yelled, the anger rising within her like a flame. You don't get to talk about sacrifice. You've done nothing but betray everyone who believed in you. In a sudden move, Kellen lunged, aiming to disarm her. Zarus reacted instinctively, rolling to the side as his hand swiped through the air where she had just stood. The sound of metal clashing echoed in the air as Eli, sensing the danger, quickly intervened, stepping between Zarus and Kellen. Get back, Eli shouted, pushing Kellen away and aiming his weapon at him. You're outnumbered, Kellen. Surrender while you can. Kellen laughed, the sound chilling and mirthless. You think you can intimidate me? I have the Federation at my back. You're the ones who are trapped. In that moment, a realization washed over Zarus. They were indeed trapped, not just physically, but in a moral quandary that threatened to tear them apart. The choice before them was a heavy one, to fight or to flee, to sacrifice or to survive. Eli, we can't let him escape, she said, her voice steady, filled with resolve. If he gets away, he'll report back and plus all at risk. Then what do you propose? Eli asked, glancing at the approaching Federation soldiers who were beginning to flank their position. We can't fight him and deal with the soldiers at the same time. Zarus's heart raced as she weighed their options, the weight of leadership pressing upon her. I'll distract him. You and the others need to push forward. Get to the control unit. If we can disable the grid, we can cut off their reinforcements. Ellie's expression shifted to one of shock and concern. You can't be serious. You'll be putting yourself in danger. There's no guarantee you'll make it back. Zarus locked eyes with him, the connection between them deepening in that moment. I have to do this. If we're going to win this fight, we all need to make sacrifices. It's the only way we can achieve a future worth fighting for. No, Eli replied, his voice thick with emotion. I can't let you do this. There has to be another way. Do you trust me? Zarus asked, desperation creeping into her voice. Do you believe in what we're fighting for? Of course I do, Eli said, his voice barely a whisper, the pain of the situation evident in his eyes. Then trust that I'll do what needs to be done, she urged, stepping back as Kellen advanced, fury etched on his face. You have to move now, before it's too late. Zarus, Eli began, but she cut him off. Go. I'll hold him off as long as I can. You have to stop the Federation. With that, she turned to face Kellen, who was smirking as he advanced, clearly reveling in the chaos around them. You think you can take me on alone? You're out of your mind. Zarus straightened, summoning every ounce of courage she could muster. I'm not afraid of you. Kellen chuckled darkly, his confidence unwavering. You should be. This is your end, Zarus. As Eli hesitated, glancing back at her, she shouted, Now, Eli, go. Her voice rang out, filled with urgency and defiance. Eli hesitated for a heartbeat longer, then turned and sprinted toward the control unit, his determination pushing him forward. Zarus's heart swelled with pride and fear, knowing he was risking everything to protect their future. Kellen lunged at her, and Zaris dodged, feeling the rush of air as he missed. She could hear the battle raging on, the shouts of her allies mingling with the cries of the wounded. But all that mattered was the fight before her. "Fight me," Zaris shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins as she circled Kellen, looking for an opening. "You've taken everything from us. You'll pay for your betrayal." Kellen lunged again, and Zaris narrowly evaded him, her training kicking in as she twisted away. She could feel the power of her resolve building within her. She was fighting not just for her life, but for everyone who had suffered under the Federation's grip. "You think you can win?" Kellen spat, his frustration growing as he missed again. "You're nothing without the Federation's resources. You're a child playing at war." Zaris countered, spinning around to strike at his side. "And you're just a coward hiding behind your badge." "I'm not afraid to fight for what's right." Kellen staggered back, momentarily caught off guard by her boldness. For the first time, uncertainty flashed across his face. Zaris seized the moment, pushing forward with renewed vigor. As she fought him, she could feel the weight of their conflict pressing down on her. Every punch thrown was a blow against the oppression they had faced, a rebellion against the fear that had kept her silent for too long. She was no longer a pawn. She was a player in this game, fighting for the future she believed in. But as the battle intensified, Zaris realized Kellen was not just a former ally. He was a formidable opponent. With every strike, he countered, pushing her to her limits. The energy around them crackled with tension as they clashed, a storm of emotion and desperation swirling in the air. "You're stronger than I thought," Kellen admitted, his breath heavy with exertion. "But it won't be enough." Zaris narrowed her eyes, determination hardening her resolve. "I don't need strength alone. I have something you'll never understand, hope." With a fierce cry, she launched herself at him, her movements fueled by the belief that freedom was worth every sacrifice. She struck with precision, using every ounce of training and instinct she had honed over the years. As they fought, Kellen's smirk began to fade, replaced by a look of genuine concern. Zaris could feel a tide shifting. The more she fought back, the more she could see the cracks in his confidence. But just as she felt a glimmer of victory, the sound of reinforcements arriving shattered her focus. She glanced over her shoulder and saw the Federation soldiers advancing, guns raised, ready to suppress the rebellion once and for all. "No," she shouted, realizing that Eli was still inside the control unit, potentially vulnerable to the oncoming forces. Kellen's eyes glinted with triumph as he caught her distraction. "Looks like your little rebellion is about to come to an end." Zaris's heart raced. She had to protect Eli and her allies. "I won't let that happen," she declared, determination flooding her veins as she made a split-second decision. She feigned a retreat, baiting Kellen to pursue her. As he lunged, she sidestepped, using his momentum against him, sending him crashing into a nearby control panel. Sparks flew, and alarms blared as the system began to short-circuit. "Ellie," Zaris yelled, her voice cutting through the chaos. "You have to finish this." As Kellen scrambled to regain his footing, Zaris knew she had to hold him off just a moment longer. She faced him, heart pounding, ready to fight to the last breath if necessary. "Do you really think you can win?" Kellen sneered, wiping blood from his mouth. "You're only delaying the inevitable." "Maybe," Zaris said, drawing strength from within. "But I'd rather fight for something worth believing in than live in your twisted world." With a roar, she charged forward, ready to confront Kellen one last time. The weight of her choice hung heavy in the air. She was willing to sacrifice everything for her beliefs, for her friends, and for the future they all fought to reclaim. As their bodies clashed again, each moment resonated with the stakes of their choices, a testament to the lengths they would go to secure freedom. This was not just a battle for survival. It was a battle for hope, redemption, and a new beginning. The aftermath of choice. The chaos of battle raged around Zaris as she fought with every ounce of her strength against Kellen. Each clash reverberated through her body, a reminder of the stakes at hand. As she launched herself forward, adrenaline surged through her veins, propelling her forward with a fierce resolve. She could not allow Kellen to regain control, nor could she let the Federation soldiers reach Ellie. "Zaris," Kellen shouted, frustration evident in his voice. "You're making a mistake. You think you can win this war with sheer willpower. You're just a tool for the rebellion, a puppet dancing on strings you don't even see." Zaris felt the heat of anger bubble inside her, fueling her movements. "I'm no one's puppet, Kellen. You've traded your humanity for power. I fight for the people who deserve to be free, not just from the Federation, but from the darkness you embody." With a fierce cry, she launched herself at him once more, dodging his punches and countering with strikes of her own. Each blow landed with purpose, a statement against the tyranny he represented. Kellen was relentless, but Zaris's determination was stronger. But as their fight unfolded, the chaos around them intensified. Explosions rang out in the distance, punctuating the air with bursts of light and sound. The Federation forces were closing in, their shouts echoing like thunder as they prepared to crush the rebellion. Zaris's heart raced, not just for herself, but for her comrades and Ely, who was likely still battling to disable the control unit. Kellen took advantage of her momentary distraction, launching a swift kick that connected with her side, sending her sprawling to the ground. Pain lanced through her, but she gritted her teeth and fought to regain her footing. She had to keep going. She had to protect what mattered most. "Look around you, Zaris," Kellen taunted, his voice dripping with disdain as he regained his composure. "You're losing. Your precious rebellion is crumbling before your eyes." Zaris glared at him, pushing through the pain. "You underestimate us. We are more than just a few rebels. We're the voices of those who have been silenced for too long." With renewed vigor, she pushed herself off the ground, her body protesting against the movement. The fire in her heart ignited as she charged at Kellen, channeling the spirit of her fallen comrades who had fought against tyranny. This was for them, for the ones who had sacrificed everything for a chance of freedom. Kellen anticipated her charge, sidestepping at the last moment and grabbing her arm, twisting it painfully behind her back. "You're strong, I'll give you that," he hissed, his breath hot against her ear. "But strength alone won't save you. You'll always be outmatched." Gritting her teeth, Zaris summoned her strength, leveraging her body weight to break free from his grip. In a fluid motion, she spun around, catching Kellen off guard and delivering a powerful strike to his jaw. He stumbled back, shock painted across his features as he caught himself, momentarily unbalanced. "Do you feel that?" she shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "That's the spirit of every single person fighting against the Federation. We're done being oppressed, and we will rise." Just then, the ground shook as explosions erupted closer to their position. Zaris's heart sank as she heard the cries of her comrades, their voices drowned out by the roar of destruction. Fear surged through her, but she couldn't allow it to paralyze her. "Ellie," she yelled, desperation clawing at her chest. "You have to finish this. Disable the control unit." Kellen's expression twisted in irritation. "You think he'll make it in time? Look at what's happening. Your rebellion is collapsing." Zaris felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. They had faced insurmountable odds, but they had fought together, united by a common cause. "But it's not over yet," she reminded him, her gaze focused on the chaos still unfolding around them. "We have to help our people." Eli nodded, determination etched into his features. "Let's go." As they surged forward, the remnants of their rebellion gathered around them, the spirit of unity igniting their resolve. They charged into the fray, fighting not just for their survival, but for the hope that had been rekindled in their hearts. In that moment, Zaris understood that the aftermath of their choices would shape not just their lives, but the lives of countless others. They were not alone. They were part of a greater movement, a rebellion that would not be extinguished.